Okay, so hello, all my lovelies. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely, lovely Sunday. Welcome to Mysteries of Insanity. This is a brand stankin' new podcast, and I am going to be your hostess, Peyton. I absolutely have been dying to start my own podcast. I just honestly didn't have the confidence in the first place. I really love telling stories. It's just, I don't know, I've always been a storyteller, always loved to do it. But like I said, this is a first episode, so if I do act kind of awkward, kind of weird, it's all just new to me. I'm just trying to get used to it, so just bear with me, okay? So, for today's episode, I have a very strange unsolved case. In my opinion, it's strange. Anyway, many of you have probably already heard it before, probably from another podcast, or you're just a deep diver into unsolved mysteries or just murder cases in general, whatever. It pulls all the right brain strings for me because I just can't comprehend what anyone would be thinking when they would attempt any of this, okay? Just Okay, let me just get into it. This is going to be the case of the D.B. Cooper hijacking. Alrighty, so D.B. Cooper, which I am using quotations if you cannot tell by the sound of my voice, was a man who was in his mid 40s, last seen wearing a black business suit and a black tie with a white shirt under it. Okay? He was a quiet man, very to himself, so some had reported. On November 24th, 1971, he was in the Northwest Orient Airlines in Portland, Oregon, buying a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington, in cash. Okay? I don't know about anyone else, which I'm sure there's some of you that are just like me. That's freaking weird. Okay? Why do you gotta buy something in cash? Why can't it be on a credit card? What are you trying to hide? Like, what you got going on that you don't want to be tracked, you know? Anyway, a little bit after 3 o'clock p.m., he gave the stewardess a note that said he had a bomb inside of his briefcase and wanted her to sit next to him. If you don't know what a stewardess is, it's the person that gives out all the meals on the plane and whatnot. But anyway, as anyone would though, the stewardess sat next to him. Cooper then opened up his briefcase and showed her only just the little bit of mass wires. He then demands her to write down what he had just said to her. So, a few minutes pass by, and the stewardess is going to the captain with the note that Cooper had said for her to write down. On that note, it says that he wanted 4 parachutes and $200,000 only in $20 bills. Why only in $20 bills? Please, just make it make sense. Isn't that difficult? Could you imagine counting $200,000 in only $20 bills? You'd be there all fucking day, in my opinion. Anyway, once the flight landed in Washington, Cooper exchanged the 36 passengers on the flight for the money and the parachutes, but kept several of the crew members on the plane. The plane then took off, and he demanded them to set a new course to Mexico City, which they didn't really say why Mexico City at all. That's just what he wanted, I guess. He's just that kind of man. But sometime after 9 o'clock p.m., Cooper then decides to jump out of the back of the plane with, obviously, thank God, the parachute and the $200,000 bills in 20s, you know? Thank God the pilot had landed the aircraft safely, but Cooper had disappeared into thin air. Okay, that man, poof, gone, nothing of him. He was out of the picture at that point. So once the FBI learned about the hijacking, they had immediately opened an investigation because apparently it lasted many, many years. The FBI had interviewed over hundreds of people around the 5th year anniversary of that mysterious hijacking. They had considered around 800 fucking suspects. That is insane. That is a lot of people to be investigating, okay? But out of that 800, they only picked 24 after more investigating. They had actually had one suspect that caught their eye the most, and his name was Richard Floyd McCoy. So, little background. Mr. McCoy was arrested for a similar hijacking 5 months after Cooper's hijacking, which, why would you do that whenever you know Cooper just got in trouble for it? Beats me, but, to each their own, I suppose. But he was soon taken off the table because he didn't match any of the physical descriptions given by any of the flight attendants. He didn't match. Anyway, the FBI had a very small idea. Maybe Cooper just didn't survive the jump. He just gone. Since the parachute can't be steered and his clothes, especially his shoes, is not what most people would wear if they were to jump out of a plane. And I'm sure he had a very rough landing because that suit and that tie is not going to protect nothing of you. All right, I'm going to just say that right now. They think that he jumped into a wooded area at night, which isn't the most safest thing because I'm pretty sure Mr. D.B. Cooper is not freaking Bear Grylls, bitch, okay? They believe this because in 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram found $5,800 in $20 bills, rotting in a package on a sandbar along the Columbian River. They all had matching serial numbers, which is kind of the same serial numbers that Mr. D.B. Cooper had for his ransom money. So, like I said before, this guy, poof, gone, disappeared, nowhere to be found. Ain't nobody know where this man went. Whatever, he didn't want to be found anymore. He hit the road. And that was all I could find on D.B. Cooper's hijacking, but I did find an article that had some updates on the case. So in 2009, so that's from 1971 to 2009, that's about, 38 years, if not that. I actually have no freaking idea because I suck at math. I failed math. Thank you. And there was a special agent named Larry Carr who had taken over the case in 2007, so 2 years prior, thinks that the hijacker, D.B. Cooper, got his name from a comic book. Wow, how original. You kind of just made it up. You had to be a comic. Okay, whatever. The comic they found was a fictional series of a Royal Canadian Air Force pilot named Dan Cooper. He takes several adventures into outer space, and they had an episode posted near the date of the Cooper hijacking, but it doesn't really say before and it doesn't say after, but using my big brain, I'd like to say it was before. Anyway, the front cover of the comic was Dan Cooper, which, let me make this clear, was the comic book man, not the hijacker. Mr. Dan Cooper was parachuting through the air. Sounds to me like Mr. D.B. Cooper wanted to be like Mr. Dan Cooper and fly through the air in a parachute, thinking that comics are real life. To some of you it may be. Don't take that offensive, please. Thank you. Anyway, strange. This was important to Carr because he says that the comic was never translated into English. So that means the hacker, D.B. Cooper, I am so sorry, the hijacker, D.B. Cooper, had spent some time overseas, which would also fit Carr's theory of D.B. Cooper being in the Air Force at some point in time, which I have no idea. I looked, and it was nowhere but in this second article that I found of him being overseas and in the Air Force. And so I'm not really sure where Mr. Carr pulled this from, but I trust him. He's a special agent for a reason. So that is why he chose to jump out of a plane, more than likely because he was in the Air Force. They like to jump out of planes. But Carr plans to use technology that wasn't around in 1971, like GPSs and satellite maps. Tom Kay, who is a paleontologist, will use himself and his crew to help Carr solve this case. They planned on tracing the plane's flight plan to find the exact coordinates of where Cooper may have landed and to also find where Ingram, which is the little boy who found the money in 1980, so 3 decades later. Which, oh my gosh, I would be impressed if they actually freaking figured that out. But unfortunately, this is where all the updates stopped. There was no more of it. I guess they just gave up. I don't know. But it's still an open case. And it hasn't been solved in nearly 5.5 decades. That is a crazy long time, okay? I'm just baffled. How did Mr. D.B. Cooper, just up and leave, okay? He was like, no, there's no way. There's no way he just up and left like that, okay? In my opinion, though, I'm going to give you my honest opinion, okay? I definitely think Cooper kicked rocks, okay? That man had met the other man down under, because I cannot fathom how anyone could just disappear and not be found. That man met the Undertaker, okay? But in all, I just absolutely love these cases just because, I don't know, it itches my brain, okay? And not in a good way, because how can someone just disappear and then never to be found? Like, no more reports, no one's ever seen him, unless he's dead. That was why my opinion just came in. But I don't know. I really don't know. But again, that last bit was just my opinion, okay? Just saying, no one quote me on it, no one get me in trouble. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Mysteries of Insanity. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and a comment or whatever floats your boat. And as always, have a lovely rest of your Sunday, guys. See ya!